Well, joining me now is Jamil Jaffer. He is the founder and executive director of the National Security Institute at George Mason University. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me on.
So these are the first direct talks between Israel and Lebanon in more than 4 decades, brokered by the U.S. What does that say about U.S. leverage right now in terms of those discussions? And what do you make of the Israeli ambassador's comments?
Well, what's clear is that there's a shared interest between the Lebanese government, the legitimate government of Lebanon, and Israel, which is to, as the Israeli ambassador said, liberate Lebanon from Hezbollah and its dominant influence it's had over in recent decades in that country. Obviously, Hezbollah is a U.S.-listed foreign terrorist organization. We know about the terrorist attacks they've committed, not just in the region, not just against Israel, but against America and our interests around the globe. And this is a group that has been backed by Iran for decades. And it will be good to see Lebanon successfully liberate itself. And if that comes with some American and Israeli help, then so be it.
The thing is, even if Israel and Lebanon are on the same page and reach a framework agreement, Hezbollah is not at the table, right? They've already rejected this process. So how realistic is an agreement that holds and one that can be enforced on the ground if they're not even a party to it?
Well, no, you're exactly right. It's going to involve the Israeli Defense Forces, the Lebanese armed forces, and potentially U.S. capabilities being brought to bear to really pressure Hezbollah to give up the territory and influence it has in the region and in Lebanon specifically. That's going to be a difficult battle. It will not come purely with just negotiations. The best that can be achieved by these talks is a commonality of understanding and agreement and maybe some action as between the Israelis, the Americans, and the Lebanese forces. It's not going to solve the problem that is Hezbollah. The way that problem gets solved is twofold. One, Hezbollah being disarmed on the ground and giving up its arms, which it is unlikely to do. And two, frankly, preventing Iran from supporting this proxy group that it has, as it has for decades. That's what might come out of the larger discussions in Pakistan or elsewhere, as you laid out, between the U.S. and Iran.
And I want to turn to Iran because you helped craft the congressional oversight on the Iran nuclear deal. And right now we're seeing a fundamental gap. The U.S. pushing for zero enrichment, while Iran insisting that it maintains its right to enrichment. From your experience, is there a viable middle ground here?
Well, look, I think that President Obama in his nuclear deal tried to find that middle ground, allowed Iran to have enrichment, but only at certain levels over a certain period of time, or a 10-year agreement. That agreement obviously was roundly rejected by both bipartisan majorities in the House and the Senate, although not enough to prevent the president from entering into that agreement, and then ultimately gotten rid of by President Trump in his first administration. So what's clear is this administration is not interested in Iran or enriching domestically. They view, and I think correctly view that as a mistake in the prior administration that made that deal. And ultimately now the question becomes, can you get to a deal, Iran having now had enrichment domestically for a while, first under an illegal illicit program, and then legitimately under the Iran framework deal, the joint plan of action? Will they ever go back to not enriching domestically? The U.S. view is they must. That's the gold. And as a result, Iran, a lawless state that supported terrorism for a long time, should at least be held to that standard. And so there's a debate here. And now there's been some suggestions in these negotiations that maybe the U.S. would accept enrichment after 20 years. Iran has said maybe it might give it up for 5 years. Maybe there's some trade space there. But in my view, allowing Iran to have enrichment at any point is unacceptable because there's no need to have enrichment if you want a civilian program. The only reason to have enrichment is if you want to develop a nuclear weapons capability at some point. That's not something we should ever allow this government in Iran to ever have.
And Jamil, you've argued that both sides want a deal, but there doesn't seem to be overlapping terms. So what creates actual leverage at this stage? Is it military pressure, economic pressure, diplomatic concessions?
I think all of those things. I think you're right. I do believe that both sides want a deal. It's clear that President Trump is getting weary of this war. It's clear that the high oil prices are costing him politically at home. He wants to get this war to a conclusion. The Iranians want to end the devastation that's happened to their military and to their stature globally as they've been taken down in a significant chunk. They still have some weapons. They still have missiles and drones. They'd like to maintain those. The U.S. would like to get rid of those. They still have a supply of enriched uranium, 440 kilograms programs enriched up to 60%, which, by the way, is very close. Even though 90% is the threshold for nuclear weapons capability, between 60 and 90%, the work is only about 5% more work to get to that level of enrichment because of the way that enriching uranium works. So they're very close to weapons-grade uranium, which is troubling. That's about 9 weapons worth of capability that they could get to if they chose to make that sprint. And so we got to get that enriched uranium out of there. That, you're right, the parties are far apart. There's not a lot of commonality today, but that's because Iran is too far along on their capabilities and have too long supported terror. The U.S. has now put pressure on them, but perhaps not enough. For there to be real pressure, Iran has to not think they have control of the Strait of Hormuz. That means President Trump's going to have to reopen that strait. He's put in place the blockade, but to your point earlier, that hasn't been that effective. We'll see how it goes over the next few weeks, days and weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Jamil, Jaffer, great to get your analysis and perspective. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.